I just heard a boo in my ear. I just heard a buzz in my ear. Alright, we got B-ball breakdown. Is James Harden even worth it? So, Harden requested a trade, so see what he has to say.
When James Harden requested a trade from the Sixers, it might not have been a surprise, considering he's done this a few times before. It seems as though Harden wants the
he got ejected for this.
money that Philly doesn't want to give him. So the question arises, is he even worth it? Teams can easily find guards that can get their teams into their offense, make the right read, run the pick and roll confidently, and hit the three-pointer when it gets swung around to them. Heck, Gabe Vincent just did that for a team that made the NBA Finals, and he just signed a contract for $11 million per year. So what are teams expecting from a guy
like
that going to pay over $35 million? There really are only a couple of things. Isolations is one. The shot clock is winding down. The offense is stalled. Can this guy manufacture a bucket consistently? The second thing is crunch time. Can this player come up big in close games when they really matter? Now, last month, Harden got piled on for not showing up in Games 6 and 7 versus Boston after leading his team to a 3-2 lead with a hobbled Joel Embiid out there. But was that even Harden's fault? A close examination of these two games revealed a game plan by Boston that exposed very real flaws. The possessions are littered with tons of pick and rolls run by Harden, where at least one extra defender rotated heavily to get right in Harden's way, practically forcing him to make the pass. These were all the right plays, creating lots of opportunities for his teammates to get wide open threes from the corners and long closeouts to attack and make something good happen. With the overload of the defense,
dang, PG Tucker messed up the space in there.
Something good happen.
You gotta be on the other side, buddy, not the side that he's driving on. Yo, they don't blame Doc for this.
With the overload of the defense, Harden wasn't going to force up shots against long defenders in close quarters, and I don't blame him. Part of being a star is using your gravity to make your teammates
want to take up the space on the strong side. Whoop-de-doo!
Better. And after enough of these bricks and poor decisions, I can understand why his immediate reaction after the season was, I want out of here. I need to find a better situation where my teammates can help me out a little bit more. Also, if we're looking for reasons why Harden wouldn't even get an opportunity to look at the basket with the ball in his hands, there were plenty of possessions where they dump it into Embiid and let him go to work down low.
I do the same thing on 2K though.
No one is going to argue with letting one of the best post players in the league get his opportunities. They didn't work out great in these two games, I'm sure adding to the Harden frustration, but we know Embiid was operating on one good leg, which makes you wonder if maybe they should have cut down a little bit on all the stagnant ISOs where the rest of the team was relegated to standing around and watching. But let's get back to analyzing where James Harden is now and whether a team would be wise to trade for a guy turning 34 in August while toting such a huge contract with him.
I think he's only 1 year left though, so he's inspiring there. B-ball breakdown. He's about Northeast University. I know you went there.
With the ball in his hands and a spread floor, he can still be very dangerous and even a little explosive. I love this through the legs jab step crossover move. Notice how his back foot shortens the stride in order to get to top speed quicker, and Smart was hoping someone else would help him out to no avail. And I'm sure we're all familiar with Harden forcing a mismatch out of the pick and roll, doing a little dance, and then gathering with the left foot down before illegally stepping back to establish his right foot as the pivot, getting this one off over a tight contest from Horford for a nice triple. In the regular season, Harden saw his free throw rate plummet to the second lowest.
That's what I said. Because sometimes he be going to the paint looking to get fouled instead of going to score. Like when you go to the paint, you look to score, get a layup or dunk it on someone. Harden now he going to the paint just to get a foul. He trying to get fouled, get sent to the free throw line. That's not how you're supposed to play.
Harden saw his free throw rate plummet.
And these refs are cracking down on stuff like that. They have a rule specifically for you, Harden. Specifically for you. They can't, you can't fool them anymore, Harden. They're familiar with your game.
Of his career, which tends to make these ISOs less effective when he can't convince the referees that he was fouled, like he does here with the obvious contact of the body on this drive. After all, his specialty was getting into the defender's body, catching him out of position, then shooting with awkward cadences that made these types of calls no-brainers for the refs. However, The game has changed
Yep.
since his MVP heyday.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The game has changed. Adam Silver told him to crack down on these calls right here.
Particularly the way they call contact on those drives. And
Yeah.
it still hasn't completely adjusted, unfortunately.
Yeah.
By lifting his left arm up into Horford's, it looks like there's all sorts of contact. But since the ball isn't in that hand, the refs aren't going to call this anymore. Horford gets his hand out of the cookie jar. Harden is now facing the sideline with no way to get this shot to go in, and the result is frightening. Early in Game 7,
I think Harden just has to adjust to the new NBA. It's not 2018 refs anymore. It's 2023 refs. You know, I know they got worse. Refs probably got worse this year, but you just gotta adjust. That's all players, not just Harden.
Through the legs combo gets him a step on Derek White, but he does the same thing, initiating the contact before he even gathers the ball, and ends up turned the wrong way with no one before he even gathers the ball, and ends up turned the wrong way with no other option but to throw it up while falling down. It seems like the NBA simply got fed up with Harden's unique way of drawing fouls.
That's right.
And altered the rules to discourage it. Yet Harden continues to take a swing and see if he can get the call.
Yeah.
Just like you could take a swing at betting Major League Baseball on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets, up to $200.
Don't pull me again like that, Coach Nick. Hubba Bubba Max. Hubba Bubba Max.
Opportunities. Just like Harden does here, by using his inside foot to slam on the brakes while using a subtle elbow to Tatum's waist to get wide open in the lane, but he's 2 feet off to the right for a bad miss. And with Embiid resting in a 9-point lead in Game 7, he can't get by Brogdon, although there's no spacing anyway with this group, then creates a decent look from 13 but airballs it. He didn't create a lot of three-point shots from his ISOs in these two games, but for the series, he could only muster 31.7% on his pull-up threes, a big drop from his regular season production. With StatHead.com, we were able to see how well players shoot when those shots could tie or take the lead in crunch time. And over the last 5 years,
Dang, Harden not even on the list.
we see that James Harden ranks 6th in effective field goal percentage amongst all players.
Wait, he's on the list? I ain't see him.
100 of these shots. On a side note, it's amazing that D'Angelo Russell is second in this category, and I'm completely surprised that Russ is right in the middle of all these guys.
Yes.
Good for him. What's fascinating to me, though, was that if we isolate for the playoffs the past 2 years, we see that Harden only took 5 shots in the last 4 minutes of games where he could tie or go ahead, making 3 of them, and all from his past series against the Celtics. Of course, a big reason is that Embiid took 9 of the 23 total, missing 7 of them, and that helps explain why the Sixers haven't been able to break through to the conference finals during the processing era.
He was getting clamped up by old man, bro. Drive on him. They gonna respect you when you drive. They gonna respect Embiid more. They gonna respect Hark. You know, Harden going to the paint looking for fouls, and Embiid's not going to the paint looking for. He look to dunk it on someone or lay it up, so he's gonna get the foul call most likely.
Conference finals during the processing era. Does all this mean James?
But they just cracking down on Harden.
Truly worth a
He even knows it, and he still tries it. What did he do? He said last year when he was with Brooklyn before he got traded to Philadelphia, I feel like the NBA made that rule just to crack down on me. I'm the poster boy for that rule. He said that, and he's still playing like this. What did he do?
Considering
What is
the
he
new
doing?
CBA makes it very difficult to have more than 2 big stars on your team, do you want one of them to be a guy who will be 37 on the last year of a contract? He's a guy who still has a lot left in the tank, but also notoriously underperforms in the playoffs in terms of box score production and hasn't been able to lead his team to the conference finals.
He called
His
backcourt.
career
That wasn't
is littered
backcourt.
with no shows
Almost
in the
backcourt, but it
playoffs
wasn't.
That should make any team very wary of tying up that much cap space for a marquee name that may or may not be consistent
man lost the
enough
ball.
for your team to weather the
He
intense
elbowed Jaylen
pressure
Brown in the
and
face.
glaring lights of the playoffs, when that salary is truly earned. Hey sports fans, it's Coach Nick here, and I had to get into this with Brian Toporek, who is a contributor to Forbes Sports and Liberty Ballers, and also used to write for bballbreakdown.com, and he's the man with the plan. He knows everything about what's going on with the Sixers, so I had to bring him in. Brian, thanks for coming on the show.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Well, listen, let's break this down right away. First of all, there's some contract stuff which might have triggered why he wanted to opt in and get traded. Can you fill us in a little bit about how that worked and why this is playing out the way it is?
It's unclear exactly what was being offered by whom or if there were any offers even on the table, because as we know, teams technically can't start negotiating until 6 p.m. on June 30th.
There's some flies flying around my light. I don't know how they got in here.
And got a pretty hefty fine. So the messaging from the Sixers side, at least, is they were not genuinely not tampering with James Harden this year. We're not negotiating contract numbers.
Good job, Daryl Morey, following the rules. Good job.
At 6 p.m. Harden and his according to
he wasn't doing that last year. Good to see the change.
Wanted them to tamper effectively. Wanted more finality, or wanted to have a better sense of what Philly was willing to offer. So when the two sides couldn't see eye to eye, Harden instead decided, okay, I'm going to pick up this $35.6 million player option, and that's going to give me more freedom for my next destination. So had he opted out, he could have signed with the Rockets, for instance. They have, $60+ million in cap space.
Yeah.
They have more than enough for his.
I don't understand how opting in gives you more flexibility when you could just opt out and become a free agent and go to any team that you wanted to go to. Whoop-de-doo!
Which is tentatively projected for $47.6 million. But it sounds.
And now I'm talking about trade me. Tell 76ers to trade me now. They can trade you any team they want to trade you to. They can trade you all the way to the Detroit Pistons, boy, with Doc.
The Rockets have pivoted to Fred VanVleet and some other targets, so I don't think that was on the table. Other than that, I mean, he could have tried to negotiate a sign-and trade somewhere, but if a team signs and trade or acquires a player via sign-and trade, you get hard capped at the first salary cap apron, which as of now is projected to be about $172 million. So
what?
I've already heard the Clippers from basically every major newsbreaker today. The Clippers have emerged as, one of the teams interested, if not the favorites.
They should go to the Clippers, man. You'll have a big four. Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. Big four. Conference finals guaranteed.
That would not have been possible if he had opted out, because they are so far over the second apron that there's no way they could have acquired him.
I mean, he could have took the vet minimum. Russ took the vet minimum. And Russ is same level as Harden.
That's true for the Phoenix Suns as well. If they were interested, Miami Heat, I know Shams Charania mentioned as a possible landing spot for him as well. They're also way over tax line, first apron. They're close to the second apron already. So I think a lot of this was just having more freedom of movement. James Harden looks at the market, realizes, hey, if I opt out, probably Philly or bust. And that gives Philly all the leverage here. I'm going to opt in, tell Philly, hey, maybe we need to find something that makes sense where I move on, you guys get something back. I'm still playing for a contender. And then, if you guys weren't willing to make this long-term commitment, send me to a team that might.
I think it was kind of Kyrie Irving last season. This is like the same situation Kyrie was in last season with the Nets.
Well, clearly you're not in the situation where you're willing to get traded or want to get traded unless or if the season we just had gone so smoothly and swimmingly that you'd want to stay. So can you give us any insights into why Harden isn't, in love with Philadelphia and in love with the Sixers and in love with Embiid and wants to stay?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was a secret at this point that Harden and Doc Rivers did not necessarily see eye to eye. I mean, Doc Rivers went on Bill Simmons' podcast earlier this month and described why it was such a challenge to coach James Harden.
Did you like coaching him? Was it okay? Like, how would you rate the experience?
Well, I'm not trying to hear Doc right now, bro. I wish I had him younger.
We were fighting two things, and not like visually fighting. Is that James is so good at playing one way, and the way that I believe you have to play to win.
It doesn't work, Doc. It doesn't work, Doc.
Holding you back.
He's sponsored by Wix. Both of their ways. Hey, Bebo, I know you're sponsored by Wix. I ain't know you use that. Bebo, I know you sponsored by Affinity. I know you had an Affinity.
Thoughtfully designed.
Look, it's obvious James' way doesn't work and Doc's way doesn't work. Whoop-de-doo! Both their ways don't work. So they both got to find new ways.
In some ways, it's different because it's a lot of giving up the ball, moving the ball, coming back to the ball.
Sure. I mean, I can imagine at this stage of his career, this age, that he wants like maybe the one last contract that's going to really give him a lot of money before he gets to the point where he isn't worth it. Is he worth a max?
No, I don't think so. I mean, maybe you could talk yourself into it on a 1+1.
Yeah.
And it's all context dependent and team dependent as well. But I think as we're seeing in this new CBA, with the financial restrictions for the league's highest spending team,
Like I said, he's in the same boat as Kyrie. Like, you give Kyrie a max contract money, but they don't want to give him like a 5-year deal. I think he's in the same boat as Kyrie.
It's
in the
gonna be
media.
really hard to build around 3 guys on max contracts. So if the Clippers do end up acquiring him and have Paul George and Kawhi on their books as well, it's going to be fascinating to see how they build out the rest of their roster. They have a ton of depth right now, so they might be the one team built to withstand this kind of thing. But it's going to be really hard for them to continue adding talent.
And I heard they said they wouldn't want to give up T-Man, which is smart. That means you gotta give up first-round draft picks. Either you don't get T-Man, then we gotta keep our draft picks, our first-round draft picks. You give you T-Man. If you if you want our first-round draft picks too, then let us keep T-Man in. You can have one or the other. Can't have both.
The supporting cast around them will wither over the coming years, and they won't have good ways to replace those guys. So, James Harden last year averaged 21 points, led the league with 10.7 assists per game, had these 2 monster games against the Celtics in the playoffs. Like, he's a really good player. And I think, a lot of Sixers fans right now are like relieved, excited, some combination of the two that Harden is not coming back. To some extent, I can get that because you heard some of the numbers being thrown around, like 3 years, 150 million or something like that. This max is 4 years, 213 million. Like, yeah, I would be queasy to make that kind of a commitment to James Harden when he's turning 34 later this year. He's got this long history of playoff collapses. He's had injury issues in recent years. Conditioning has not necessarily ever been like his strongest suit, to say the least. Like
So this conversation gonna go on for
enjoys nightlife, and maybe you could do that when you're in your mid-20s, but it's harder to do that as someone in my mid-30s. I can vouch it is harder to bounce back from that kind of thing. So. I can understand being.
All right. See what else he has to say.
Now, it's always great to see you and talk to you about hoops. So, anything we can expect?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I'll react to the Harden trade whenever it does happen. I did write at Liberty Ballers earlier this week just about the concept of him opting. I encourage you to go check that out. And then, we'll see. It seems like it's going to be a busy summer for the Sixers, as always.
Well, for sure. Well, thanks to everybody out there. Make sure you check out Brian's writing over at Forbes Sports and Liberty Ballers. And we'll see you soon. Thanks, Brian.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
W video, be my breakdown.